A decade of public insults, accusations, bruised egos, and bitter interviews eventually led to one unbelievable moment. Katt Williams walking onto a live Netflix stage to stand face-to-face with Kevin Hart. But was that handshake really about peace? Or was it something far more calculated? Imagine standing in front of millions of viewers beside a man you've spent years calling Hollywood's puppet. After publicly attacking him for more than a decade, he suddenly extends his hand live on camera and asks for unity. What would you do? Reject the moment and risk looking jealous? Or smile for the cameras while hiding everything you truly feel? That's the question many people asked the second Katt Williams stepped onto that stage. According to Dave Chappelle, the moment may never have been about forgiveness at all. Dave later hinted that Katt understood something most entertainers eventually learn the hard way. In Hollywood, perception can matter more than truth. Public image can become more powerful than private feelings. And sometimes survival means playing the game without letting people realize you're playing it. The atmosphere already felt electric before Katt appeared. It was the closing night of Netflix's massive comedy festival in Los Angeles. Bright lights flooded the stage while celebrities, athletes, executives, and comedians packed the room. Cameras swept across the audience every few seconds. Producers whispered into headsets backstage while security guarded every entrance. At the center sat Kevin Hart, smiling confidently as comedian after comedian roasted him in front of a global audience. On the surface, everything looked celebratory. Kevin appeared relaxed, polished, untouchable. Years of success had transformed him into one of the most recognizable entertainers on earth. But beneath the jokes and applause, there was another layer to the night. Everyone knew Kevin Hart's name carried enormous power now. Movies, commercials, streaming deals, sold-out tours, his empire stretched everywhere. Yet at the same time, another conversation had been growing online for years, fueled largely by Katt Williams himself. Was Kevin Hart truly the people's comedian? Or had he become the perfect product created by Hollywood executives? That question lingered in the background all night. Then suddenly, everything changed. When Regina Hall announced there was one final surprise guest, the energy in the building shifted instantly. Conversations stopped. Faces turned toward the entrance. Even the music briefly lowered as if producers sensed something enormous was about to happen. And then Katt Williams walked out. For a split second, the room almost looked frozen. The reaction wasn't normal applause. It was shock. Real shock. Cameras captured stunned expressions across the crowd. Dwayne Johnson looked genuinely confused. Pete Davidson nearly jumped forward in disbelief. Several celebrities exchanged nervous glances as whispers spread through the audience. Even Kevin Hart's smile appeared to tighten for a brief moment. And honestly, who could blame him? Only months earlier, Katt Williams had ignited the internet after launching another explosive attack against Kevin during a viral interview. But this wasn't ordinary celebrity gossip. Katt questioned Kevin's authenticity, his rise to fame, and even whether Hollywood executives carefully manufactured his career. Katt didn't merely criticize Kevin's comedy. He accused him of becoming part of a larger machine. According to Katt, Hollywood rewards entertainers who cooperate, stay obedient, and avoid challenging powerful people behind the scenes. In his eyes, Kevin Hart represented the perfect example of someone who understood how to play that game successfully. But was Katt exposing hidden truths? Or was he simply bitter about opportunities he never received? That debate divided fans for years. Some people viewed Katt as fearless, a comedian willing to sacrifice money and mainstream acceptance to stay authentic. Others believed Kevin Hart was simply smarter, more disciplined, and better at navigating the entertainment industry without destroying himself in the process. And that contrast between them became impossible to ignore. Kevin Hart's story looked like the American dream. He transformed himself from a struggling stand-up comic into a global superstar through relentless work, business discipline, and non-stop ambition. His brand became safe enough for corporations yet relatable enough for everyday audiences. Katt Williams took a completely different path. Brilliant, unpredictable, controversial, and often chaotic, Katt built a loyal following by refusing to sound polished or controlled. His fans admired him because he seemed willing to say things others were too afraid to mention publicly. Even when his career suffered setbacks, legal troubles, or industry backlash, many supporters believed he remained authentic. So when these two men suddenly stood in the same room again, people knew this wasn't ordinary entertainment anymore. It felt personal. Katt slowly approached the microphone without smiling. Every step felt deliberate. The crowd quieted almost immediately. Even through television screens, viewers could feel the tension pressing against the room. Then Katt delivered the line that instantly changed the energy of the entire night. "I won an Emmy," he said calmly, pausing just long enough for the silence to build, "but tonight might be the greatest acting performance of my career, because I have to pretend you're a legend." The crowd exploded. Some people laughed loudly. Others looked stunned. A few celebrities covered their mouths in disbelief. Kevin smiled, but the expression looked complicated, part amusement, part discomfort, part calculation. Because that joke wasn't just a joke. It was a reminder. Katt wanted everyone watching to understand one thing clearly. He had not arrived as a defeated rival seeking forgiveness. He still questioned Kevin Hart's position in comedy. He still distrusted Hollywood. And he still believed there were truths the public wasn't being told. Suddenly, nobody cared about the rest of the roast anymore. Every camera focused on Katt and Kevin. But to understand why that moment felt so explosive, you have to go back years earlier, when their feud transformed from playful competition into one of comedy's most uncomfortable rivalries. For years, Katt Williams repeatedly claimed Hollywood rewards entertainers willing to obey unwritten rules. He often described the entertainment industry almost like a machine, one that could elevate careers overnight or quietly destroy people who resisted. In interview after interview, Katt suggested he lost opportunities because he refused to compromise himself. He hinted at meetings, conversations, and demands he believed crossed personal boundaries. While he rarely provided hard evidence, his mysterious accusations created endless speculation online. And according to Katt, Kevin Hart benefited from that system more than almost anyone else. One major controversy involved Katt criticizing male comedians who wore dresses during movies or comedy sketches. Katt framed those moments as humiliation disguised as entertainment. He claimed he personally turned down major opportunities rather than participate in something he viewed as degrading. That argument sparked massive debates online. Was Katt defending principles? Or promoting outdated ideas about masculinity and performance? Kevin Hart publicly rejected Katt's interpretation entirely. Kevin argued that acting is acting. Comedy is performance. Wearing a costume or playing an exaggerated role did not threaten a comedian's dignity. In Kevin's view, entertaining audiences mattered more than symbolic arguments about image. That disagreement became bigger than comedy itself. It turned into a cultural argument about success, authenticity, compromise, and power. Who was right? The rebel who refused to bend? Or the businessman who mastered the system and built an empire? As years passed, the tension only intensified. Katt repeatedly accused Hollywood of protecting certain celebrities while punishing others. Kevin, meanwhile, continued climbing higher. Major film studios trusted him. Global brands partnered with him. Streaming platforms invested millions into his projects. To Katt supporters, Kevin's success almost proved Katt's point. To Kevin's supporters, Katt sounded increasingly resentful. Then came one of the strangest chapters of their feud. Katt publicly challenged Kevin Hart to an outrageous $5 million showdown involving boxing, basketball, rap battles, and stand-up comedy. Social media exploded instantly. Memes flooded the internet. Fans argued non-stop about who would win. But underneath the humor was something serious. Katt wanted to prove Kevin wasn't unbeatable. He wanted to challenge the image Hollywood had built around him. Kevin mostly laughed the situation off publicly, treating it like entertainment rather than genuine conflict. But many observers noticed something interesting. Kevin rarely attacked Katt directly with the same level of intensity. Why? Was Kevin avoiding unnecessary drama? Or did he understand that publicly fighting Katt too aggressively might damage his carefully crafted image? That question followed both men for years. As time passed, they came to symbolize two completely different paths through fame. Kevin Hart represented structure, discipline, corporate success, and global branding. Katt Williams represented unpredictability, rebellion, and resistance against perceived industry control. And somehow, despite all the insults and accusations, both men maintained enormous influence. That's exactly why the Netflix moment felt almost surreal. Because for one brief night, two completely opposite philosophies stood face to face under the same spotlight. And Katt didn't soften much during the roast either. Throughout his appearance, his body language remained controlled but distant. He smiled occasionally, but there was always an edge underneath the humor. Every compliment sounded layered with sarcasm. Every joke felt like it carried hidden meaning. At one point, cameras caught Kevin studying Katt carefully between laughs, almost as if trying to predict what he might say next. Viewers noticed it immediately online. Was Kevin genuinely nervous? Or simply trying to keep the show under control? Social media exploded within minutes. Clips spread everywhere across TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and X. Millions debated whether the moment represented peace or psychological warfare disguised as comedy. Some viewers believed Katt secretly embarrassed Kevin on his own tribute stage. Others argued Kevin actually won by appearing calm, professional, and unbothered in front of the world. And maybe that's what made the moment so fascinating. Neither man fully lost. Neither man fully surrendered. Instead, they performed a strange public dance built on years of resentment, competition, admiration, and mistrust. Dave Chappelle later added even more intrigue when discussing the situation privately with other comedians. According to several reports, Dave suggested Katt understood something deeply important before walking onto that stage. Sometimes refusing an invitation can damage you more than accepting it. Think about it. If Katt Williams had refused to appear that night, critics would have attacked him instantly. Some would call him bitter. Others would accuse him of jealousy, fear, or resentment toward Kevin Hart's enormous success. In Hollywood, silence often gets interpreted as weakness, and absence can become its own confession. Katt understood that better than almost anyone. So instead of disappearing, he did something far more strategic. He showed up. And the second he stepped onto that Netflix stage in Los Angeles, the entire atmosphere inside the building shifted. Cameras moved toward him. Audience members straightened in their seats. Social media exploded before he even spoke a full sentence. Why? Because everyone understood they were witnessing something bigger than comedy. They were watching two completely different philosophies collide in public once again. Katt's appearance immediately changed the narrative. He reminded the industry that he still mattered. He reminded audiences that despite years of controversy, interviews, and public criticism, his voice still carried weight. More importantly, he forced millions of viewers to revisit a feud many people secretly believed had never truly ended. And maybe that was the entire point. Was it brilliant? Manipulative? Necessary? Perhaps it was all three at once. What makes the rivalry between Katt Williams and Kevin Hart so fascinating is that it goes far beyond insults, jokes, or celebrity gossip. At its core, the feud touches something deeply personal that ordinary people understand immediately: the fear of losing yourself while chasing success. How much should someone sacrifice to achieve greatness? Can a person remain authentic inside an industry built almost entirely on image, money, branding, and public approval? And if someone becomes wildly successful, does that automatically mean they compromised something important along the way? Those questions are larger than comedy. They connect to business, politics, music, social media, and everyday life. Millions of people see themselves somewhere inside that conflict, which is why audiences remain obsessed with every interaction between these two men. Because underneath all the celebrity drama lies a far more relatable story. Two talented men chose completely different paths. One embraced the system and mastered it. The other challenged the system publicly and repeatedly. And for one unforgettable night on a brightly lit Netflix stage, those two worlds collided again in front of millions of people analyzing every smile, every pause, every joke, every uncomfortable silence, and every hidden message. But perhaps the biggest mystery still remained unanswered. When Katt Williams finally shook Kevin Hart's hand that night, was he genuinely making peace? Or was he proving that in Hollywood, even the most personal battles eventually become part of the performance itself? As the show continued, the tension became impossible to ignore. Katt's delivery felt sharp, calculated, and emotionally loaded. His jokes landed with force, but underneath the laughter there was something heavier hiding beneath the surface. At one point, Katt mocked the idea that Kevin Hart's rise to superstardom happened purely because of talent and hard work. He joked about powerful executives, controlling Kevin behind the scenes like a puppet being guided by invisible strings. The audience laughed loudly, but the room also felt uneasy. Some people shifted nervously in their seats because the joke carried an edge that felt painfully real. Was Katt simply roasting another comedian? Or was he exposing what he truly believed about Hollywood power structures? That question hung in the air long after the laughter faded. Then things became even more uncomfortable. Katt referenced the growing controversy surrounding Sean Combs, widely known as Diddy. He never directly accused Kevin Hart of wrongdoing, but he questioned why celebrities often become silent whenever difficult conversations begin involving powerful figures and influential networks behind the scenes. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. The roast no longer felt like simple entertainment. It felt personal, political, and strangely dangerous. Even viewers watching from home could sense that something deeper was happening beneath the jokes. Yet Kevin Hart remained remarkably composed. And that may have been the smartest move of the entire night. Instead of becoming defensive, Kevin leaned directly into the puppet joke. He exaggerated robotic movements and pretended invisible strings controlled his arms and legs like a marionette. The crowd erupted with laughter instantly. In just a few seconds, Kevin transformed a direct attack into comedy gold. It was fast, smooth, professional. But one detail stood out immediately. Katt never laughed. His face stayed cold, distant, and unreadable under the stage lights. While the audience celebrated the moment, Katt looked almost suspicious, as if he were watching something much larger than a comedy performance unfold in real time. Many viewers later said the interaction didn't feel like two comedians exchanging playful jokes. It felt like two powerful personalities fighting for control over the narrative itself. Who would define the story? Who would control public perception? Who would leave the stage looking stronger? Those questions became increasingly important as the night continued. Then came the moment everyone remembers. After Katt finished speaking and prepared to leave the stage, Kevin Hart suddenly stood up and walked directly toward him. The room instantly became quiet. Even the energy inside the theater changed. Audience members stopped laughing. Cameras zoomed closer. Millions of viewers watching live leaned forward, wondering what would happen next. Kevin grabbed the microphone and spoke in a surprisingly emotional tone. He admitted the feud had lasted for years. He acknowledged the tension publicly. Then he said maybe it was finally time for both men to move forward. And then came the moment that changed everything. In front of millions of people watching around the world, Kevin Hart extended his hand and called Katt Williams his brother. Now pause and think carefully about that situation. What happens if Katt refuses the handshake? In that single moment, Kevin positioned himself perfectly. He became the mature peacemaker standing under bright lights offering reconciliation publicly. If Katt rejected him, audiences might immediately view Katt as angry, bitter, jealous, or incapable of letting go. It was psychologically brilliant. That's one reason why Dave Chappelle later found the moment so fascinating. Katt paused for several long seconds before finally accepting Kevin's hand. Then the two men hugged awkwardly in front of the cheering audience. But viewers noticed something strange immediately. The hug looked stiff, forced, uncomfortable. There was no visible emotional release. No genuine warmth. No sense that years of tension had suddenly disappeared. Katt didn't appear relieved or transformed. If anything, he looked cautious, almost disconnected from the emotional moment unfolding around him. And social media reacted instantly. Within minutes, thousands of viewers began posting theories online. Some people celebrated the apparent reconciliation, calling it mature and inspiring. Others believed the entire moment felt carefully managed, almost scripted. Many viewers didn't see peace at all. They saw strategy. They saw two elite entertainers protecting their brands in front of a global audience. And perhaps the biggest question became this. Did Katt Williams genuinely choose forgiveness? Or did he realize refusing the handshake publicly would damage him far more than accepting it? Some observers believed Netflix itself wanted the feud softened because both comedians remained extremely valuable to the platform. Others believed Katt understood he needed access to larger mainstream audiences again after years of controversy, isolation, and difficult public moments. Then another theory emerged. Maybe Katt realized fighting Hollywood entirely from the outside was no longer effective. Maybe appearing on that stage gave him an opportunity to challenge the system from within instead of shouting from a distance where fewer people listened. And honestly, that possibility made the entire situation even more complicated. Because what happens when a rebel finally steps back inside the machine he spent years criticizing? Does he lose credibility? Or does he gain influence? Before viewers could fully process the emotional handshake, Kevin Hart flipped the mood completely. The second Katt disappeared backstage, Kevin grabbed the microphone again and immediately shifted tones. "That was the best acting performance of my career," Kevin joked. "Don't believe that, dude." The audience exploded with laughter again. Then Kevin launched into an aggressive roast of Katt Williams. He mocked Katt's controversial statements, his public struggles, and some of the unpredictable interviews that had made headlines over the years. The crowd loved it. But something important had already happened before those jokes landed. Kevin Hart had protected his image first. By publicly offering peace before attacking Katt again, Kevin positioned himself as the reasonable and emotionally mature figure. So when he fired back afterward, audiences interpreted it as comedy instead of cruelty. It was a masterclass in public perception. So what exactly did viewers witness that night? Was Katt Williams compromising with a system he spent years criticizing? Or was he intelligent enough to understand that real influence sometimes requires stepping inside the machine rather than standing outside screaming at it? Was Kevin Hart sincerely attempting to end a painful feud? Or did he recognize the perfect opportunity to reshape public opinion in front of millions of viewers at the exact right moment? Maybe the truth exists somewhere in the middle. Because human beings are complicated. Fame makes them even more complicated. And Hollywood magnifies every insecurity, ambition, rivalry, and survival instinct until it becomes impossible to separate performance from reality completely. One thing, however, became absolutely clear after that night. The handshake did not erase the tension. If anything, it exposed just how complicated power, fame, ego, survival, and authenticity become inside modern entertainment. And perhaps Dave Chappelle understood that reality better than anyone else in the room. Because sometimes in Hollywood, a hug is not peace. Sometimes it is protection. Sometimes it is negotiation. Sometimes it is survival disguised as forgiveness. And sometimes the performance continues long after the audience believes the story has finally ended.